And we're back in the car like we never left. Welcome to the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Oscar Sunday afternoon here with me in New York. But once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. The newest entry after yesterday in our continuing series of guilty pleasure movies. And this one is a real burner, a real howler of a guilty pleasure movie. It's a horror movie, but from a certain point of view, it is a screamingly funny comedy. Thanks to the efforts of, well, not really the lead actor, thanks to the efforts of a supporting actor who takes scenery chewing to Olympic gold medal levels. The movie is Taylor Hackford's 1997 guilty pleasure classic horror comedy, The Devil's Advocate. The actor I'm referencing here, who just absolutely runs it all the way up the flagpole to see who salutes it as far as performance, is Al Pacino. And 1997 is the year, speaking of Oscars, that I saw the highest percentage of films nominated in the major categories. 97 was the year of Titanic. It was the year of L.A. Confidential. It was the year of Adam McGowan's The Sweet Hereafter. James L. Brooks' As Good as It Gets, Matt Damon, of course, and Francis Ford Coppola, The Rainmaker, and Gus Van Sant's Good Will Hunting. It was just, to me, a great year for movies. And Devil's Advocate, which I saw in theaters on its opening night, October of 1997, just an unbelievably entertaining film from start to finish. Perfectly cast. It has that kind of high sheen of the 90s. There's a lot of plot twists, and it's not a great Keanu Reeves performance. And Keanu was asked to do an accent that I don't think was suited to his kind of very particular vocal inflections. I think that they should have had, because his character is from Gainesville, Florida, so he tries to do a little bit of a Florida accent. It doesn't quite work. The accent comes and goes. But to be fair to Keanu, who I adore, I mean, who doesn't? The same year, Helen Hunt won literally the Best Actress Oscar for her turn in As Good as It Gets. Now, it's a really strong performance. And Nicholson ended up winning Best Actor, playing Melvin Udall in that film. But Helen Hunt's Brooklyn accent kind of comes and goes. So me sitting here on the, in the ivory tower saying that, well, I don't think Keanu really nailed the accent. He shouldn't have been asked to do it in the first place. But if Helen Hunt can win Best Actress with an accent that kind of comes and goes, there's nothing wrong with Keanu's performance. And Charlize Theron as his wife, Marianne, in the film is really good. And she kind of came out of nowhere and was in a couple of big movies in 1996, which set her on the path to, we could say it's superstardom. She ended up winning a Best Actress Oscar for films released, I believe, in 2002 or 2003. That was the movie Monster. Man, what an incredible performance she gave there. But Judith Ivey plays Keanu's mom in this film. And you have Craig T. Nelson, another terrific actor. He's in a guilty pleasure movie himself. Action Jackson as the big bad. He plays kind of a fucking scumbag in this movie too. The somewhat notorious Jeffrey Jones is in the film. It is a massively entertaining movie, and certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's in the low 60s. It's not a very good film, but the goal was get fannies in seats, shock, terrify, horrify, and let Al do his thing. And boy, does he deliver. Now, a separate note from the movie itself. Filmmaker Taylor Hackford was actually very busy within this particular time frame. This is worth noting. So he shot this movie like in the last portion of 1996, and maybe there was some work that was being done in 1997. The reason why I say Hackford was busy is he was the key guy in Leon Gast's documentary, which ended up being released at the end of 1996 and won the Oscar for Best Documentary at the 1997 Academy Awards. Leon Gast's documentary called When We Were Kings. Leon Gast had sat on this treasure trove of footage for about 21 years. The documentary When We Were Kings is about the Rumble in the Jungle, the famous fight between Muhammad Ali and George Foreman in Zaire in October of 1974. And Leon Gast had been contracted to make that movie, but He ran out of money. And I know that sounds stupid. Everyone in Hollywood is loaded, right? Well, Leon Gast ran out of money and did not have the funds to complete that film. He went more than 2 decades with incredible footage and was not able to get anything together to complete the film until he showed what he had recorded in 74 to Taylor Hackford sometime in the 1995 range, right around when Taylor was getting ready to start pre-production in Devil's Advocate. He showed Hackford his footage, and Taylor Hackford, with the influence of somebody who was very well respected in the industry, I mean, he's Dame Helen Mirren's husband, for crying out loud, they were able to get things together, and Leon Gast was able to shoot new footage to kind of make it more contemporary. And When We Were Kings, the completed film, was a really good documentary. I mean, also super entertaining. And when I think Taylor Hackford, the first movie I think of is Officer and a Gentleman. Second movie I think of is Devil's Advocate. And the third movie is When We Were Kings. So without him, I don't think Leon Gast ever gets to, forget win an Oscar, I don't think he ever gets to complete that really solid film. So Devil's Advocate, not surprisingly, there is a lot of stuff going on in the subtext here, because the idea of a lawyer selling his soul, it's not just lawyers. And lawyers kind of, I don't want to say they get a bad rap in Hollywood, but it's kind of obvious that lawyers are usually painted in a negative light in the media and in movies. And here in this film, you have Kevin Lomax is the name of Keanu's character. And he's a likable enough guy. But for someone so young, he's never lost a case. He's a defense attorney. And he already seems to have made his peace with the idea that I really don't give a shit if my clients are guilty. I'm just here to do a job. And speaking of other films released in 1997 that I referenced, Matt Damon in The Rainmaker, the character that Jon Voight plays in that film, an old school Southern attorney, it could be Keanu's Kevin Lomax 3 decades later, where he sold out so long ago, he doesn't even remember why he got into the law in the first place. And it's a top 10 best moment in Matt Damon's movie career for sure, when he just all but spits the words at Jon Voight's asshole attorney. Do you even remember the first time you sold out? Well, unfortunately, in the world of this film, as much as Kevin Lomax seems like a nice enough guy, has a beautiful wife, his mom, although she's presented as a bit of a wacky Bible thumper, a loving mother who has tried to do right by her son, and he's a successful attorney. He's making big money at such a young age. She must have done something right in raising him, right? But we see that he is not above looking the other way when his client is a pervert scumbag, gets the guy acquitted. So his maneuverings, the fact that he is already quite corruptible, attracts the attention of a big New York City law firm headed by Big Al himself, Al Pacino, playing a character named John Milton. Now, even someone like me, I saw the film, I was, 4 months after having graduated from New York University Film School. I got the joke that the character's name was Milton. Oh, Paradise Lost, and I'm sure there's a little Dante's Inferno going on here. Like, this is not an accidental name. We already know because we've seen the previews, and the poster makes it quite clear that Al Pacino's character is Satan. He is an incarnation of the devil, or as Mike Myers said, he is like the fruits of the devil. He is evil. Well, he is the devil. And another thing that came up when this movie was being released, not surprisingly, there was a lot of talk of other films in which some version of the devil or Satan was represented. And not surprisingly, Al was asked about, did you check out your buddy, Bobby D in Angel Heart? Did any of what he does, sorry for spoilers, any of what Robert De Niro does in Angel Heart, did you take from that? And he kind of said he was a fan of the film, but he really he certainly didn't want anybody to think that he cribbed notes from that performance. Now, the reality is, again, sorry for spoilers, but the movie Angel Heart, my single favorite horror film, Robert De Niro's character, his name is Louis Cypher. His name is Louis Cypher. And Mickey Rourke, in one of the great moments of his career, he actually even goes, Louis Cypher. Lucifer. I mean, we're not trying to hide the 1 + 1 = 2 of it all. De Niro, though, in Angel Heart, it is a quiet, interior, you hate to say classic De Niro performance, but it kind of is. It's not a broad performance. Well, broad is Al Pacino's middle name, especially in the decade of the 90s. He was knocking out one big performance after another. Now, the movie that Al shot before Devil's Advocate, just before, and I recently talked about on the channel, Donnie Brasco, is really the only high-profile film in this era that Al does not go huge. That's what she said. But you think about it, even in Glengarry Glen Ross, which is a really strong performance by Al, he does have his moments where he does a lot of gesticulating and carrying on, although there are also moments of intense focus and concentration, such as the scenes he shares with another great actor, Jonathan Pryce. But in Scent of a Woman, his Oscar-winning role for Best Actor, he's going nuts. He's screaming and carrying on basically the whole 2.5-hour running time of the film, and it's on Chris O'Donnell to play the so-called straight man in that. So, yelling and screaming for 2.5 hours. Carlito's Way. Love the movie. A lot of yelling and screaming for also more than 2 hours. Great film, though. Heat. Almost a 3-hour movie of mostly Al Pacino screaming and yelling and carrying on, and Mr. De Niro giving another very focused, tight, interior performance. City Hall. Pacino plays the mayor in New York City opposite John Cusack, Bridget Fonda. Good movie, not great. That's the movie where he screams, "Were we not great once? Can we not be great again?" And then Donnie Brasco, he dials it back. He gives a 70s style performance, like in the movie Serpico, where his character kind of switches back and forth, but it is a very tight and also focused performance. Unlike Dog Day Afternoon, where there is a lot of screaming and yelling. But to be fair to Pacino, every one of the performances I mentioned here either is in the service of a fantastic film where his character adds to the entertainment value, or it fit the character. He was broad, but it made sense for who he was playing. And Pacino, for all of the kind of guff that he took in certain circles, this was when the internet was really starting to catch on and more people were able to post their thoughts. He's not considered in the same generation, Al, that is, as Jack Nicholson. So I've talked about this. Pacino and De Niro, although they're 3 years apart, we kind of think of them together because they're friends. They have worked together a number of times, and the connection being, of course, of The Godfather Part 2. Jack Nicholson gave very similar performances in a number of movies. In fact, I remember somebody once saying that the character that Jack plays in The Witches of Eastwick, hello, he's playing the devil. Same thing, right? I mentioned De Niro in 87 in Angel Heart. Jack in The Witches of Eastwick is playing, again, another kind of version of the devil. And here you have Al in The Devil's Advocate he's basically playing Satan. But Nicholson, you can argue that his Batman in 1989, it's the same guy that he plays in The Witches of Eastwick. Jack gives almost the same performance. He's a little bit more straightforward, just a smidge more straightforward in Witches of Eastwick. But there are huge chunks of that film where he is Jack Napier on crack, and I'm not exaggerating. And Jack he didn't really take any heat for that. Well, no pun intended. Oh, Jack is just being Jack. I think he's fantastic in both films, even if there are similarities in the performance. And what Pacino does here, yes, there is an enormous amount of theatricality to the performance, as there was with Heat. It does not hurt the movie Heat, and I would argue that his performance suits this film also. It fits like a glove. So, the irony of a young attorney already willing to close his eyes and act as if justice is not only blind, but deaf, dumb, and blind. Realizing during the trial that his client is a scumbag pervert and really should rot in prison. No, he's just going to go right ahead. He's going to plow head first, and he's going to do everything he can to get his client acquitted. And there is the idea in this film of winning at all costs. Is there a time where you just can't go forward. And what is that line for people? And this is something that is interesting in other movies and in life. It has nothing to do with Devil's Advocate having this kind of comedic angle with Pacino going nuts in the world of the very serious legal repercussions that the characters face and are, involved in this story. So, for example, we don't know what Keanu's line really is. How far is he willing to go to continue to advance and ascend the ladder of, best and brightest attorneys now in New York City? In the film Changing Lanes, which is about 5 years after Devil's Advocate. Now, that's just a straightforward drama. But the character played by Ben Affleck, although he's not, strictly speaking, he's not presented as the assassin trial lawyer that Keanu's Kevin Lomax is in this film. But in Changing Lanes, the character that Ben Affleck plays he does a couple of things early in the film that he convinces himself he is okay with. But the more you go into the story, the further it goes, the less okay he is with it. Now, Keanu doesn't exactly have, if you'll pardon the phrase, he doesn't exactly have a come to Jesus moment as far as what he's doing. But the repercussions that his character faces when he realizes what's going on with his wife, who is starting to experience these terrifying hallucinatory visions. The fact that Keanu is neglecting her to try to advance his career. And this is something we saw in The Firm. Again, a straightforward drama, not a horror film, where Tom Cruise at The Firm is so busy, he's neglecting his wife. He's not paying close enough attention to her. And the irony in that movie and in Grisham's story is that you would expect that he's not paying attention, or he's so focused on work, he's going to start hooking up with a woman at work. Doesn't happen. In the world of The Firm, his wife starts to become interested in one of his friends in the law firm. So that, and John Grisham kind of pulled a little twist on that. But in the world of the book and the film, the character of Mitch McDeere hooks up with another woman anyway. It's very, very messy. But in the world of this film, it is unfortunate for the Kevin Lomax character that he has to absorb terrible tragedy to understand what he's doing is just not okay. And when I discussed the movie Get Out last week, that is not a guilty pleasure movie. That is just a sensational horror film. But I talked about the notion that you sometimes see in movies where a character is set up early as a kind of comedic character. And often a comedic character, that's what they are for the entire film. The comedy sidekick, Joe Pesci in Lethal Weapon 2 or something like that. But occasionally, there's more going on than we think. And we set a character up either as an apparently lighthearted character or a character that we are simply going to look down on or make fun of because they're ridiculous throughout the story. And in Get Out, there is the one character, I forgot his connection to Daniel Kaluuya's protagonist, but he's talking about this goofy stuff like sex ring. There's a sex ring. And we're supposed to laugh at him. But as the story unfolds, he starts coming closer and closer to the truth with some of the seemingly outlandish things he's saying. So in the world of Devil's Advocate, or The Devil's Advocate, the Judith Ivey character. Judith Ivey is a pretty strong actress. She worked with Neil Simon. She was a stage actress as well as a film actress. I don't know if she is still around, but she plays Keanu's mom, as I mentioned. And her character is a fire and brimstone, Bible thumping kind of character. And she says a lot of really goofy stuff in the first part of the movie. And the audience was laughing at a lot of what she said because it was just like, what is wrong with this one? What is she talking about? But the further you go into the movie, the more she is making sense and might be the only character who has any clue of just how bad all of this is. And it's to Taylor Hackford's credit that he risks setting her up as such a sort of figure of fun, or this woman is so far out there that we won't be able to ever follow her. But the performance by Judith Ivey, particularly in the final third, is really something. I mean, there was a scenario in which she could have gotten award. She wasn't going to get an Academy Award nomination, but that she could have been in play for other awards because she is dynamite. She gets better as the movie goes along, as her character starts making more and more sense. So right now, The Devil's Advocate, the only app or streamer that it's on free is the app called Plex, which I think is a free app where you have some commercials. I'm not sure about that, but I always want to, throw that out there. But this film was a substantial box office hit. The budget was somewhere around a budget and marketing. It was somewhere in the $50 to $55 million range. It grossed over $150 million. So anytime you have a movie that's, especially a big budget film, with the big Hollywood buildup, anytime you're talking 3 times production cost, even in the ballpark of 3 times production cost, it's a substantial hit. And this is a film that a lot of people told it had good word of mouth. The reviews, as I said, it's like in the low 60s on Rotten Tomatoes, but this was never going to be a critic's movie. This was a film where Al Pacino he's almost breaking the fourth wall. Definitely at the very end, he does break the fourth wall. But there are moments in the movie where it feels like he's playing to the audience. And he has this just unbelievable rant about God towards the end of the movie as everything has gone wrong for Keanu's Kevin Lomax. And it's as entertaining as anything Pacino ever did. Because as much as the character is giving us information, he kind of shows his true face. This really is, I really am the Satan. I'm not a Satan worshiper. I am, I'm the guy behind the guy behind the guy, so to speak. And he lets loose with this just impossible screaming tirade about God that the audience I saw it with, and this is a horror movie, there were people literally screaming with laughter as Pacino was carrying on. Let me tell you something about God. He's an absentee landlord. When he yelled, he's an absentee landlord at the top of his lungs, there was a guy behind me I thought was going to have a hernia. He was screaming so hard from the laughing. And I was giggling too. It's just, there was no way not to laugh. Even if in the world of the movie, it shouldn't be funny. Like there's a way to play that exact scene and keep it at the horror film level. But Hackford he had a live wire in Pacino and he presumably just said, you know what, Al, just let him have it. Just fucking go. Let's go. Give it all you got. Or as Pacino says in Heat, give me all you got. Give me all you got. It's amazing. So I wasn't scared when I saw Devil's Advocate. Unlike Angel Heart, which really creeped the shit out of me. And at the end of the movie, I was really kind of disturbed and haunted by what I had seen. And I had trouble sleeping the night of the first time I saw it. Devil's Advocate does have horror movie elements, but I almost see it more of a psychological thriller because of the stuff that, okay, so for example, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that came out a decade later, End of Days. It's a similar kind of thing. I see, well, The Devil's Advocate's a better movie than End of Days, but End of Days technically is an action horror film, but I was not scared, even though a lot of the images and the visuals are supposed to make us fearful. In that movie, Gabriel Byrne plays Satan or, Lucifer, Azazel, Beelzebub, whatever, throw however many representations of Satan you want out there. But I just didn't think that Devil's Advocate was scary. I found it to be super entertaining. I would give this film 3.5 stars out of 4. And because of the scenery chewing of Al Pacino, the film has a very high rewatchability factor. And Craig T. Nelson also, as a sort of mustache twirling scumbag, he really adds to the entertainment value also. Like he's somebody who on TV as Coach, very likable, funny guy. And then you had movies like this and a decade prior, Action Jackson, where he just plays unrepentant pieces of shit. And he's very believable. And Craig T. Nelson, versatile, resourceful actor, good when he's the good guy and really good when he's the bad guy. The Devil's Advocate from 1997, directed by Taylor Hackford, starring Al Pacino, Keanu Reeves, Charlize Theron, Craig T. Nelson, Jeffrey Jones, and Judith Ivey. The newest entry in our continuing series of Guilty Pleasure Movies. This has been episode 458 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all so much for spending some of your Oscar Sunday late afternoon here with me in New York. And if you check out this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share. turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, or the others in which we're hosted, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with a new episode real soon. Till then, peace.